My name is Patrick and I want you to become fluent in English and fly anywhere you want. English is my second language and my family moved to Australia when I was a teenager. And I studied civil aviation at university. Recently, I have spent countless hours helping language learners get better at English at an online platform as a tutor. So in this video, I'm going to help you decide on what to study and how to study so that you can become fluent as fast as possible and go explore outside of your own country in your airplane or get you closer to getting the job of your dreams. But first, I would like to quickly tell you a short story. Once upon a time, two men entered a tree chopping contest. They started chopping trees when the sun came up and didn't stop until the sun went down. The winner would become famous and rich. From the morning until lunchtime, they chopped and chopped. By lunchtime, they had each chopped down the same number of trees. But then one guy stopped chopping and took a break. The other guy thought, he's being lazy and taking a break for lunch? Now I can chop more trees and win. When the guy who took a break started chopping again, he chopped even more trees than the other guy. By the afternoon, he was leading, and when the sun went down, the guy who took a break had chopped almost twice as many trees as the other guy, who was sweaty, hungry, and very tired. So the tired guy asked, "How did you win? You didn't work as hard as me. You even took a break for lunch." The winner replied, "Yes, I took a break, but during that break, I made my axe sharper." So the moral or the lesson of the story is taking time to make your tools better can save you a lot of hard work. And the reason for me telling you this story is that you want to sharpen that proverbial axe and figure out the best way to learn for you. And that brings me to the first point, the method. If you want to learn as fast as possible with the most memory retention, it is worth sharpening your axe and making a strategy on how to learn. Making a good skeleton or like an outline of how to learn languages. This method actually comes from a master learner, Tim Ferriss. In this method, there are three things worth thinking about. Effectiveness, which is we want to choose the right method to absorb the right language and the right vocabulary, the right things inside of that language. Are you studying before taking the ICAO English exam? Well, the ICAO English exam assesses people on aviation-related language skills. If you are studying to be better at aviation English, it makes sense to use aviation-related materials to aid with your studies. What does that look like? Well, that could be a list of aviation phraseology. It could be reading something like PPL study guide. Number two, adherence. We want to select a material that we won't easily get bored by. You will probably look at the material many times and come back to it throughout your journey. And it may sometimes seem monotonous or boring. So if you want to stick to the process of learning for a long amount of time, long term, select something interesting and something that you will actually find fun. Is there a skill that you want to learn? Study that in a new language, not your native language. Could you study an aviation subject that is particularly interesting to you? That kind of stuff. I don't know, meteorology or something like that. It is also good to build a habit of learning every day. At the start, you can set a goal of learning for as little as 5 minutes per day every day. Some days are just busy and you may not have the time to do more than that. And on others, if you do the 5 minutes of study and you have time for more than 5, then by all means just keep going. What I've found very effective for myself is to track my progress. Every day I sit down to learn a language, I tick it off on my calendar. I use a program called Notion for that, but you can just print out a calendar and hang it on your wall. And then every day you do your 5 minutes, you just draw a big X and mark it there. And as soon as you have a few days in a row crossed off, it makes a nice chain. And your job is to make sure there aren't any empty spaces on that calendar and you don't break the chain. And that's it. Once you get a little, it's easier to keep going. The third step in the method is efficiency. There is very little point in succeeding in effectiveness and adherence if the time to get to your desired level is 10 years. This is where efficiency comes in. You want to select the material that will get you to your target result in as little of a time as possible. When learning a language, there are lists like 1,000 most commonly used words. If you learn 1,000 to 2,000 words, that will cover 95% of the needs necessary to speak a language well. So, if you break that down to learning 10 new words per day, for example, you could potentially get to a really good result in 100 days. 1,000 words divided by 10 gives you 100 days. When it comes to learning aviation English, aviation-based vocabulary lists would be my priority. It makes sense to figure out what you will be assessed on and focus on learning the material that is related to that. Also, it is a good idea to figure out what are your weaknesses and make sure you try to fix those.
Just to summarize, the 3 steps to our learning method are effectiveness, adherence, and efficiency.
Point number 2, active recall. When learning something new, it's very difficult to bring back to memory stuff you've put inside of your head. In the past, I've made this mistake myself. I would spend a bunch of time reading the thing that I wanted to learn, and then I would make notes on the subject to prepare for something like an exam or a test. I would simply read over these notes that I've made out of the book, and I always thought my brain is slower than other people's brain, when in fact my brain was just fine. The problem was the technique. I want to tell you about this technique called active recall because it's one of the most effective techniques out there. And I wish I had figured out this when I was a teenager. This technique not only will increase your memory retention on any topic you try to learn, but when it comes to passing your next exam, it will ensure that you will perform very well. So how does it work? I spend a lot of my life trying to learn by just putting information into my brain, and while that does work, it works poorly. What's much more effective is working your whole brain. So after a piece of information is taken in, attempt to take stuff out of your head. And think about this, if you went to the gym with an exercise partner and you focused on one exercise where you only put the weight up and then somebody lowered it for you, and then you put the weight up again and only repeated the motion of putting the weight up for your entire training session, you wouldn't strengthen your whole body nearly as much as if you put the weight up and then lowered it yourself down again. doing a variety of different exercises and increasing the weight as you progress, and as a result training a range of different muscles. And the brain kind of works similarly. So how do you use that while learning English for aviation? 2 steps. As you study, instead of writing notes in your notebook, you can write questions you could ask yourself later. And then regularly go through the questions and check if you know the answer to those questions. You could do this alone, but you could make it more effective with step number 2, making flashcards. And flashcards are a fantastic way to keep asking yourself questions repetitively and have an easy way to get an answer. And you could totally make physical flashcards. However, one of the best and the most popular free apps out there is called Anki. And what Anki is it's an app with flashcards on your screen. You can attach to those flashcards not only writing, but sounds and pictures. And what is great about Anki is that when you don't remember the answer to the question on the flashcard, you press that you didn't remember it and it will automatically ask you the same question again much sooner than if you did remember the answer. It's a spaced repetition depending on the answer that you give it. And if you did remember the answer to the question, it wouldn't remind you of that question for a long time. So it kind of knows. I am making an aviation deck of flashcards in Anki. And if you would like to get a copy of that, please comment down below. Point number 3, have a deadline. Have you ever had a deadline to do something and then you put it off till the last minute and then completed the task in the last hour before it had to be ready? Or maybe you had a different encounter where you had 8 hours to do a task and you spent 8 hours completing that task, yet you knew that this same task has taken you 4 hours in the past. This is something called Parkinson's law. C. Northcote Parkinson had observed that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. What this means for us is that if we don't have a deadline to complete our studies, it may take a very long time to achieve any significant success. And what a potential solution for this could be is this: book an IKO exam 6 months from now, or at a random date at some point in the future that you feel comfortable with. You will then have those 6 months to focus and work on your language skills, and you don't waste time. Another alternative could be to book a conversation with a native speaker in 1 month's time and then prepare like crazy. I would use these things to motivate me both in the short and the long term. And either way, the point is, don't give yourself an infinite amount of time to get better. Set a goal and try to work towards it. I'm in the process of building a community platform for aviation English learners, where you will be surrounded by people just like you. And to go with that, there will be a whole lot of materials, for example, like aviation related Anki study deck, to help you with your learning journey. And if you'd like to join the waiting list for that and be the first one to know when it's ready, click the link in the description. So that's it for this video. On this channel, I focus on language skills for aviation, so hit that subscribe button for more.